Hey, are we live? I think we're live. Holy crap, everybody. We are finally live. Hey guys, this is Alon Gorin. We don't have the lower third thing because I just bumped into this call finally. Google was having some problems, and since we're having these problems, I grabbed Ash and we ditched Joseph, and so screw him. He's trying to call in though, so he'll probably get at it in any second. So I see on the thing that there are some viewers there. If somebody could do me a solid and go to the chat box on the right side and say that you can see what we're doing, that would be awesome. If not, Ash and I might power through this anyway, and hopefully we can answer your questions. You watch it on YouTube later if half of you joined. Aha, I'm seeing it. Yes, thanks guys. All right, so very quickly, let's introduce you guys to Ash because you guys probably know me by now. So Ash, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, first off, really happy to be here. Nice to finally meet you, Alon. I've heard a lot about you because of the Crowd Invest Summit and you know, you being one of the business partners of Joseph. I actually got connected with Crowdster and the world of Joseph Home because he literally is the maestro of equity crowdfunding. I'm definitely on the marketing side because he is an advisor and he helped market our equity crowdfunding campaign for Youngry, which is an early stage entrepreneur media company that will launch later this year. And we did a Reg CF / Title III campaign on republic.co. If anyone wants to see it, it's republic.co/YOUNGRY. That's, you can see the campaign. It's already expired, but because of great people like Joseph and others, we were able to complete our goal by over 131%. And so I'm just here to help to give perspective from a company who's actually done equity crowdfunding and to just support or comment or just give new perspective on anything that you and Joseph and others in this webinar want to talk about.
Are you have you been talking, Ash? I think Joseph might have kicked me out when he logged in, jerk. Hopefully everybody's still there. So Ash, thanks for telling us about yourself. Joseph, are you there? I see your logo in the corner. And I am going to, we can start jumping into the questions on the right side if you'd like, Ash. Now let me go to the question part. I think most people are posting them in the chat area. So, Joseph, you keep logging in with the same account, but we're live, dude. Hey everyone,
I'm on.
This is gonna be, I know this is painful. I'm sending Joseph a text right now saying, don't log in from your normal account, exclamation point. You keep kicking me off. We are live and this is gonna live on YouTube forever. Exclamation point. Boom. All right, everyone. So Ash, off the top of your head, let's start diving into these. Hey, Joseph, you're there.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. Sorry everyone for these difficulties here to get started. We have so many questions.
We introduced Ash. We'll dive into the questions, but really quickly, everyone thought they were getting into a webinar called Crowdfunding Masterclass. This is just performance art, guys. We're just totally screwing with you. Let's get into the question. Joseph, you got one queued?
Sure, I got one here. I got a question from Chuck, and this is actually a really interesting one because we received big news yesterday from Indiegogo, and Chuck just wants to know, now that Indiegogo has entered the equity crowdfunding milieu, what are the implications for other platforms? And I think this is something very interesting for Ash because Ash is very engaged out there, and I know that he's very close with the guys from Republic. So what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I'll speak for a second. You know, Indiegogo, aside from Kickstarter, is the king of crowdfunding. I mean, you can't deny that. I actually use an analogy that Indiegogo doing equity crowdfunding is like General Motors deciding to turn an Uber feature automatically in all of their cars. that is the potential that Indiegogo can have for equity crowdfunding, just because of the sheer number of emails and members and deals and traction that they have. I don't know if it's going to happen ASAP, where like you're going to see a lot of deals, or you're going to see a lot of successes, or even Indiegogo heavily marketing it. But the potential for this is making the whole equity crowdfunding industry as a whole amazing. And I wouldn't be afraid if you're a portal or if you aren't on Indiegogo. I would just be more of thinking that this is going to mainstream promote the idea of equity crowdfunding. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I think it totally validates equity crowdfunding in the industry as a whole. So I think they're gonna give the other platforms a good run for their money.
Yeah, I'd be crapping my pants
because of the marketing power and the brand recognition they have behind them.
I want to say one thing about that, though. Sorry to interrupt you, but one of the reasons why we at the time, and I'll be honest, if Indiegogo at that time when we launched offered equity crowdfunding, there's probably a chance we would have used them. But at the time when we decided to launch, we chose Republic because Republic's theme was similar to what we wanted to do, which was social good, and they wanted to really back companies that had a focus on helping women entrepreneurs. I bring this up because anyone who does equity crowdfunding needs to really figure out which portal is similar to their culture. Like, some might be B2B, some might be B2C, some might be retail focused. Indiegogo off the top, if you're doing like let's say you're doing an iPhone watch or something like that, that would make more sense. But if you're doing like a service or a software or something that's international, there might be other portals to use, such as the ones that you two advise and other brands that you're affiliated with. So that's my 2 cents on that, at least.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. If they're more specialized and more focused, maybe they're more willing to go out of their way to support individual campaigns. But yeah, it will be very interesting to see. I'm very happy about this. This was an interesting question. Alon, I don't know. I can see the chat here, so I can see any live questions.
So
I have a lot of pre-posted questions. So
yeah, start with the pre-posted questions. Actually, the latest chat message was from Julian asking us to not forget the crowdfunding Q&A questions you got in advance. So we should give people a little love that prepared.
All right, cool. So we got another question here. A question from Peter. Peter wants to know if you really need a formal business plan in order to get crowdfunding. I guess it's another interesting one for Ash, because you just crowdfunded a startup, and how prepared were you in terms of business plan and everything before you actually got started?
Yeah, great question. And what I would suggest is you need to spend 1 to 2 months prior to launching. Here's the reason why. For Title III specifically, that's the only one I can comment on. You have to do this form. You have to do this documentation called a Form C. And a Form C is pretty much an expansive business plan that has your business model, your projections, forward-thinking statements, everything about your business, from even as transparent as who are your shareholders, who passed the bad actor, background check, all that stuff. This literally will take 1 to 2 months if you haven't done a business plan, or if you don't have a legal accounting professional that can write in the literature. One last thing though, once you do this big plan, it doesn't stop there. You still have to file it and get it approved by the SEC, and your portal has to approve it too. So that's why I say 1 to 2 months preparation in advance.
Yeah, I mean, that's doing your homework as well. And I know this isn't a question from the pre-questions, but it's something we touch on every single time. So Mark said something, how is Indiegogo great? They told me you need to raise 30% through family and friends before launching. That's not something that is unique to Indiegogo. So one thing, so to go along the lines of doing your homework, the biggest part of doing your homework is being prepared and getting all your ducks in a row, getting your friends and family and people to commit, right? So the idea that you need to raise 30% from friends and family before you begin has nothing to do with Indiegogo, because 99.9% of the time, the platform you are on is not bringing you new investors. They're not. They're not bringing you new investors. They're not bringing you new supporters or customers if you're going Indiegogo, Kickstarter, rewards-based style. The amount of money you raise from the amount of people you raise directly proportionate to the amount of effort you put into it. You can't count on anybody else. There are those breakout hits that are crazy that maybe other people dive in on, but usually that happens only as a result of you working your butt off and doing the work. So that preparation that you do in advance is a part of that 30%, and it's also a part of what Ash is saying. You know, he's talking about the bare minimum of getting your legal ducks in a row, but if you're talking about, you know, running a business, you wouldn't plan, start, and launch a retail store in a month or two. You'd probably spend a lot longer getting prepared, doing all the work involved. So you got to think about it that way.
Yeah, totally. I think I would add to that the most important thing is to remember that nothing attracts a crowd more than a crowd, right? So if you have your first level, you know, clients, friends, family who come and support your campaign in the first 72 hours, then it will be much more likely for investors and backers who haven't heard from you before to go like, hey, this is a winning campaign. There is something going on. There are people backing it. There are people sharing it, and I want to be a part of it. I guess this it's a good segue to the next question from Julian. Actually, let's get to Julian's question.
All right.
He says, we've noticed despite a lot of reach outside the Kickstarter community that 87% of their backers are previous Kickstarter backers. And he wants to know if they're wasting their time trying to build new connection with non-crowdfunding backers, you know, because it's just a lot of work. And if you don't know if they're going to convert, what works better? I guess you're totally right, Julian, because if you have to reach someone and explain to them what crowdfunding is in the first place, then drive them to your campaign page and get them to do a pledge, it's much easier to find people who have previously supported crowdfunding campaigns, who know what Kickstarter is, who know how it works, who know what the risks involved are and what they're getting. So much easier to convert, which is why we built the backer directory, which has by now almost 2.3 million previous crowdfunding backers in it. You can search by platform, so you can filter it either by Indiegogo or Kickstarter, and then you can break it down by category. You can go into technology and say, hey, only give me backers who have backed at least 20 or 50 campaigns previously, because then you know these are real die-hard crowdfunding fans. They didn't just, you know, support their friend's campaign and then moved on, and they're not likely to support another one. They really like Kickstarter, they really like crowdfunding, and I think that your time and energy will be spent much better and more efficiently going after previous backers.
So Julian, was Julian saying that 87% of his backers are Kickstarter, or 87% of backers that back any project?
No, of his backers on his Kickstarter.
Oh, well, Julian, you've done a kick-ass job. Clearly, you have a good product that's resonating. So that's really good. You're off to the races. I would recommend just do everything you can to amplify that. A crowdster is definitely a good way. You can target people in specific. Julian, oh, okay, yeah, Julian just confirmed of your back. So that's awesome. It still doesn't mean just stand back and let Kickstarter do the work, because that doesn't really exist or happen.
They won't do the work for you. I mean, they may feature you, and then you have a little blip on the radar, get a few more, you know, pledges in one day, but the next day it's again, you know, it's back on you. Which that's why it makes so much more sense to connect with people who know what crowdfunding is and how it works, where you don't have to convince them and don't have to explain to them how the whole process works.
Yeah, but great start. That's amazing. Usually at the beginning, especially, most people are people within your network. You should still tap those people, but you should also go to where your audience hangs out, and clearly Kickstarter folks are backing you, so great job. Ash, just before Joseph jumps into a new question, this is probably a super fast one. David asked who you used for escrow and ACH for your raise. Was that built into Republic? Or?
Yeah, that was built into Republic, and for public presentation purposes, anything to do with legal or funding or anything on that side, I'm always going to defer to the platform. I'm not in that trade. I'm not a securities attorney, so it's better I don't give advice on that stuff.
Cool. Jay, you got another question? Or
fair enough. Yes, I'm reading here. Adrian is asking, do you know on average how much do family, friends, and fans fund, like the percentage? Yeah, I guess it's like we said before, you know, your family and friends are usually the first ones to come to your campaign and support you because they know you and they love you and they want you to be successful. You know, usually we try to get 30% from the primary circle and then the rest from other investors. I don't have any more detailed numbers on that. How was that with you, Ash? How was it with Youngry? How many of the, I think you raised $65,000, right? How much of that came from your primary circle and how much of that came from people who you only met in the course of running your campaign?
Yeah, you know what? Here's a disclaimer. Most of the statistics on crowdfunding, unfortunately, are from donation-based because it's been around for over 5-10 years. So equity crowdfunding, it's such a new game that the numbers are a little skewed. I would say it was probably 50-50. But I want to say one thing. The 50% that came from outside friends and family and people I know was actually more than the friends and family side. And I think part of the reason is because equity crowdfunding is such a new thing, and so it's a little awkward at first when you introduce it to your friends and family. So you have to have a really strong marketing game plan to get outside backers who can connect with your vision. And we could talk about that too on how to get those outside backers. But what we saw 50-50, but the 50% of that came from outside our friends and family gave more than the friends and family 50% side.
Let me ask you another question, Ash, because this is really interesting. As you spoke to people and you told them about Youngry, were they more interested or concerned about the technicality of the equity raise? You know, how many % of your company am I buying? What am I getting? How much is it going to be worth? You know, the reason I'm asking is because you know, this equity crowdfunding thing is so new and people always act like you need to find equity investors, you know, but in my experience, there are no equity investors. You know, these are people who like crowdfunding, they like startups, they like to, you know, invest their time and money into something they believe in. But there is no real difference between rewards campaigns and Title III campaigns where the outcome of your investment is more than unclear anyway.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, and I was nodding I was agreeing with you when you were talking. Basically, no, it's less about the raise. And I'll share a tactic that we did. So when we first launched on Republic, first off, I advise anyone who does an equity crowdfunding campaign, regardless of the platform, to make it as long as you can. Not make it 5 months, but make it 2 to 3 months. Generally on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, you do 30 to 45, maybe 60 if it's a huge raise. But we did 65 to 70 days and then some. And the reason why was, again, because it's such a new thing. And we knew that because we're doing something that hasn't really been done yet, we knew we were going to remarket or recommunicate what we had to do. So here's what we did. The first week, we had no traction. It was hilarious. People were like, well, I don't get it. I'm not going to do it. And the reason why was because we were marketing this as what you just said, an equity crowdfunding, invest in us and be part. So what we decided to do is we changed our marketing to, instead of focusing on this is why this is the greatest investment, you know, according to the Tombstone laws, we said no. We're here on a mission to help entrepreneurs. We made it more cause, passion-based, and you know, we called it the movement. And we did stuff with you, we did stuff with NextGen, we did all this media, and it was less about owning a piece of Youngry. It was more about supporting Youngry, whether you back us or you just sign up on our site. And that authenticity is what helped us get a lot of outside backers who are outside of our friends and family circle.
You also did something very interesting, which I think is the future of Title III crowdfunding because it just makes so much sense. You combine rewards, so I can get a Youngry t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I can also get equity in one donation, right, or one investment, basically. So, or I can decide to only get the t-shirt or to only get shares. And I think that this hybrid model, that has a lot of potential. I'm very excited about that.
I agree with you. That is a potential. That is potential. And I think with platforms like Indiegogo, I think they're probably going to have that built in, and because they've done that so well on the donation side.
Yeah, that's why I think they're going to be so powerful. There is another question that is actually addressed at you, Ash, from David. And he wants you to list all of the service providers that you ended up mashing together to get Youngry funded. So who were the biggest and most influential service providers that you worked with that actually helped you guys get funded?
Yeah, so I'm not going to name, hey David, I'm not going to name specific names of companies outside of one or two, but off the top, the marketing is essential. So we use Crowdster, and I can generally say that Crowdster has accelerated our awareness on social. So find a platform like Crowdster to help you with your social media management. Number two is you need to have an internal documentation system for managing all the different communications, because you have external communications, internal communications, new advisors or partners wanting to do stuff. So we used Asana for the more professional service providers. We had a on-call kind of law firm, because even though you filed your filings, you still might need to make amendments to it, and you might get asked some questions in the discussion board, because when you do a Title III, all the questions will be on your discussion page on your deal. So having a law firm to help us if some questions were tough or legally we need to give a better answer. Having a CPA, you definitely need one. And lastly, just having a group of just on core business advisors that you can throw questions at. But I would say those are the big buckets you need.
How many people were involved in your campaign? I mean, I know that from your website you have a big team, and you did many things right. I mean, whoever follows you, dude, you're all over the place.
Well, it takes one to know one, man. My LinkedIn update your updates to your Crowdster stuff. So,
so how big was your team?
So we started off with me, my founder, and one chief of staff guy, Dan, and 2 lawyers and the Republic team. We ended our campaign with 8 people on the official Youngry team, 19 advisors, and 30 power backers. Now, this is something that equity crowdfunding gives an advantage of versus donation, because people are an owner. Psychologically, they will feel inherently more to promote the company as if they're an owner of Youngry, which they are legally. So we had about 30 different people outside that were just helping us set up events, promoting us, getting backers. So overall, 50 people probably were part of our journey.
Wow, yeah, that's interesting to know. I mean, crowdfunding is definitely a team sport.
Yeah, well, it's very similar to raising money in any other way. If you're talking about raising money for equity, I mean, I remember having being shocked, and in hindsight, I should have realized it was going to happen. But once I closed an investor for my previous company, I remember one of the investors, I think, having a bit of anxiety that we might not raise enough money, and that what's his investment going to be worth if we run out of money, right? So his whole thing, the day after he made an investment, he tried to convince us we should be raising a larger round than we were raising, and then made introductions to every single investor he knew and helped us close those deals. And think about, in the crowdfunding world, you're doing that times tens or hundreds or even thousands of investors. I mean, Ash, how many investors did you end up having at the end of your campaign?
We ended up having over 130 backers.
So now you have an army of 130 people who own your company with you, who do not want it to fail. They don't want their investment to turn to zero. So now next time you do anything, whether it's launch a new product, launch your website, raise another round of funding, these people are a part of the team. They're part of the family.
I want to say one thing about that. So one thing that we were advised by one of our legal resources was do a minimum raise. We were originally going to raise 100 to 200K minimum, because realistically we thought we can do that, because we were assuming that if we were doing it on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, we'd do that. But because it's so new, we set our minimum to 50. Unfortunately, we hit 65 and change, so we had a 131% goal, campaign succession. But the reason why this is important is that what's cool about Title III is that you can raise up to $1 million within 12 months. So within 12 months, if you hit a certain lower goal and you want to go raise again in the next 3-4 months, saying, hey, we used some of your money, here's what we did, be a part of our journey to go further, I suggest that strategy with a Title III deal versus trying to raise a big sum at once. Because if you don't hit it, usually the platform will not give you the money. It's not like Indiegogo where you can get some of the money if you don't hit the goal. So at least with Republic, we had to hit our goal or none of the money would come. So I recommend people doing that.
What was the minimum investment in your deal? Because Republic is lower than most of the other sites, right, for some of their campaigns.
So again, this is a non-legal answer, but to my knowledge, you can invest as low as $10 to $20, although our average investment, again, unofficially for what I saw, was between the $100 to $500 range, but there were some $10 to $20 backers, I believe.
What does one get for a $10 investment? Can you break that down? Like if I become an equity investor in your company for $10, like what's my stake?
You know, I actually take a lot of pride in the $10 because a lot of the $10, it's safe to say that they're very early stage entrepreneurs that just want to see a brand like YoungGree come out so that it can help them. So just to know that psychology wise, they're helping see a platform that can help them when they launch their business or go further. But from a perk perspective, we didn't really offer much. One thing we did do though is we did our best ability to try to reach out to backers, whoever publicly reached out to us. So, but any backer of YoungGree, and if they're on this and they're hearing this, please reach out to me directly because I consider you all a part of this company, and as much to our ability, we want to connect with you. Can't promise we're going to be with you every day, people, you know, but we can promise that we will hear you, acknowledge you, and hear your views. You definitely have a higher up level than just a general YoungGree enthusiast because you actually put skin in the game and you help make our business happen.
I love that. What's interesting is Joseph. I could see where you're going with that question. It's like, what the hell are you going to get at the end of the day if you invest $10 in a company?
You know what I think?
Well, I actually have a follow-up question.
Think about it this way. This is the earliest, really quickly. This is the earliest stage of a company, a seed round of a company, probably even pre-seed round of a company, right? I happen to know a venture capitalist who is in the seed round of a local company to here, and that company went public, and they got a 65x return on investment on that seed round, if not including any of their doubling downs of later on rounds. So one, you're going to have access to later on rounds. If you have more money, you see that YoungGree is kicking butt, then you might be able to invest more. Or just go, hey, your $10 could have turned to $650. That's
well,
awesome.
But in all fairness, you have to also mention that like an angel investor gets founder shares. They get they get real stock, and in these Title III equity campaigns, you usually you're looking at a convertible note and you don't even know, is it going to convert? How is it going to convert? How much am I going to end up with? How diluted will I get?
The angel investor getting stock. Well, one, my company and most startups nowadays raise on a safe note or a convertible note. It's pretty much the same mechanics. And if the company fails, they all get the same thing either way, which is nothing. If the company does great, then they all do well. And at least Republic and those sites
they use look at their terms
standardized
more closely, though.
well, but they use standardized documents, the same ones that people use at Y Combinator and stuff like that. So it's not like anybody's pulling a fast one on them. That's also a good reason to use a reputable site, right? Like don't use random equity crowdfunding website.com that you've never heard of before.
Can I just say one thing about this? One thing that I love about the Title III laws, I can again only comment on Title III, is that according to the platforms that are compliant, people can only invest X amount based on how much they earn. So if you make, let's say, $50,000, you can't put in all your $50,000 into companies. There's a certain threshold on how much you can invest. That's a great limit for people, and anyone who's a advisor or financial advisor who's guiding people on doing equity crowdfunding rounds should be more aware of those laws. It's on the SEC website and all that. But what also I noticed too, to answer your $10 backers, is I also have a theory that some people might have $100 to spend, and they might have just put $10 investments in like 10 different companies. So that's what's kind of cool too, because treat equity crowdfunding deals as high risk growth companies and have a basket. Like if I had $100 extra to invest, I wouldn't put it all into one. I'd probably do 2 companies or 3 companies. That's something to do too.
Yeah, and then you can call yourself an investor in 3 startups, which is cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
I've got a portfolio of companies.
Right. I invested in 50 companies for $500. Hey, Alon, do you have any audience questions? We really only have time for one more.
So if you guys, I know, you guys got to drop off. I'm actually the admin now, so I could try to power through a couple by myself. Which
that would be awesome, actually.
That would be great.
I can stay on for a minute. And so offer 500K. Let me go actually to the Q&A part where a few people did. So social care models are not state or privately funded with some kind of social entrepreneur. So what's the experience from crowdfunding developing social care models that are not state or privately funded, but some kind of social entrepreneur? So we're talking Joseph or Ash, do you have examples of maybe more impact investment or social type of investment opportunities in crowdfunding? Ash, you mentioned that Republic has a lot of those types of campaigns.
Yes. So my answer, and I do have to jump off right after this answer, is disclaimer: I'm not a Republic advisor. I have no equity stake in Republic. So these are just. They have a couple social good companies. One that just hit their deal is a company called Racia, which was STEM products for junior high children. Another company that they have is something called Farm from a Box, which is this like big farm that you can have on a big plot of land using solar powered energy. It requires only a few acres of land, and that could just disrupt areas that are off the grid that don't have a lot of basic resources like water and other electricity and stuff like that. And I know there's other platforms that are doing a lot of social good stuff. What's also interesting though is if anyone who's really looking to back companies, I take a trend and look at these social good product companies that are like organic wine or a certain type of bar of soap that could, that can be used for over a couple hundred years. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but I'm just giving you an idea that that's what's great about tidal equity crowdfunding is that you can now experiment and do these disruptive ideas that normally wouldn't get the attention of traditional angels and VCs, and now they can be out there. Guys, I got to run, but I left my email. Please give everyone my email if they want to reach out to me, ash@youngry.com. Joseph, I'll see you in a few minutes on another thing.
Yep, I'll see you right there.
Yeah, and so thanks, Ash. So everyone, Joseph is actually going to hop off in a minute and go to that as well. What I'll try to do is power through some of these questions. Joseph, do you want to plug anything before you jump off? And I'll do a 5-10 minute power through.
Apologies again for the technical difficulties. That's the nature of being live, I guess. Alon, thanks for powering through the questions. I have to get going too now, and I'll see everyone in 2 weeks.
All right, see you later, Joseph.
Later.
Okay, so everybody, now we get to talk trash about those guys. They don't know anything about anything at all. I mean, they're completely making everything up. I'm just kidding. Both those guys are awesome. I love them both dearly. Don't tell them I talk trash. I'm going to jump into the Q&A, and then I'll try to go to the chat area, and I will. And what I will do is try to give as short of an answer as possible to some of these so we can power through. But what I'll suggest to Joseph, since we had some problems, maybe try to schedule this again next week instead of every 2 weeks so that we can, Julian asked if there's a discount for accessing the Crowdster backers area. I'm not sure, but I think Joseph owes us at least one of those, right? For this late start, and it's clearly all his fault. So I'm gonna ask him to send an email. Maybe we'll get a discount code or something. We do have a discount code for the crowdfunding summit at the end of the year called Webinar20. But be in touch with us. Shoot me a message on Twitter or an email, and I could try to give you a bigger discount because of the crap we had to deal with today. Let me power through some questions, and then I'll hop onto the chat area. Very quickly, somebody posted, the more articles they read, the more they're confused about Kickstarter versus Indiegogo. What's the difference is? Really, there isn't a ton of difference from, there really isn't a ton of difference. Indiegogo is sometimes better on some types of campaigns. Kickstarter is better on others. Indiegogo is more flexible, right? So if you don't hit your goal, there's flexible funding type of campaigns and things like that. Honestly, you said your product is a consumer product. I'd probably put it on Kickstarter just because there are more people familiar with it. We're still, even though we all know what crowdfunding is, if you go to our parents, to our friends, and ask around, there's a significant amount of people that don't know what it is. So go for where people are most familiar. And I think that's the right move. At the end of the day, you're doing 99% of the work. And so you are driving the traffic. Go to where people might be more comfortable. And that's what I'm thinking. Katerina, want to contact me? My email address is alon@invested.in. You can also go to Alonymous on Twitter. That's ALONYMOUS, and bug me, and I can answer questions, Katerina. Chuck said, wait, I thought minimum is $100 for equity investments. Actually, it depends on it depends on the individual deal and the platforms. And I know on Republic, I know for a fact you can invest $50 in campaigns because I've done it before. And I think it depends on whatever you filed and what you're comfortable with. I think that some people who do campaigns will set minimums higher, hoping that, you know, their friends and family and people don't all come in for $50, and when they could have kind of forced them to come in for 100. I'm a fan of having those minimums, but there has to be more to it, because I think investing $50, sort of like how Joseph laughed earlier, is one of those things where you might people might go, $10 on a campaign, what am I ever going to get back on this? I'm going to wait 6 years, and that $10 might turn into 100 if I'm one of the people who are extremely lucky. So that said, I would probably say do what is best. But like talking about the small numbers, ADD finally coming around, guys. So talking about the small numbers, what's great about Republic and what I'm sure Indiegogo will do, because that's what they're best at right now, is tying the investment to also a product. So that campaign, that Racia campaign that Ash was talking about, you can buy one of their remote control cars for, I think, $200. I was thinking about buying one to play with my son. And when you buy the Indiegogo style reward, you're also getting $200 worth of investment in that company, which then makes people probably not question the terms of the deal as much. Then it's just upside. I'm buying a bicycle. So if I'm buying a bicycle and I happen to get stock in the bike company, that's just awesome, right? It's like buying season tickets to see the Packers and I happen to get a certificate saying I own a piece of them now. That's great. So I think that's actually where the biggest future in the small crowdfunding is, because at the end of the day, not everybody we know can give us even $100. So if we can sell them something and give them a piece of the company, they're even more incentivized. Yael wanted to talk about Elio Motors a few times. She asked if we could talk about them. Is there anything specific, Yael? I'm looking at the chat box now. So you wanted to talk about it. What was great about them? So let's think about Elio for 1 second. It's trying to type and talk at the same time. Now, so what was cool about Elio was they did a campaign. They raised, I think, $17 million on Start Engine from thousands of investors. I think that the average investment size was somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 a piece. What was great about what they did was they had this big vision, right? And they're a consumer product. So what happened was most of the people didn't just invest in the company. They then went to the website for Elio and pre-bought, or at least put their names in and put in a deposit to buy one of their cars. They built these 3-wheel, interesting cars. So what was cool about that is they're selling a consumer product, and some people were investing, buying the cars, but most people who pre-bought a car wanted to invest, and most people who wanted to invest wanted to pre-buy the car. 1, because it was a cool product. 2, because they want to support the company they're investing in. So it's a good way to kind of bounce both directions and get the best of both worlds. At the end of the day, though, they are a marketing campaign. They spend a lot marketing. They had to do all of the footwork, and none of this stuff was put up a deal on Start Engine and wait around for money to come in. They had to work their butts off, and I know they had a big team that did it. I'm gonna go to the chat box now, and I'll try to, it actually doesn't let me go all the way to the top. It just, it only shows me the last few chats. So what I will do is, I'm powering through to see, but if anybody gives any new chat questions, I'll try to power through for the next 5-10 minutes, and then we'll close it off since we started a little late. Is there a service that will help you create and manage your crowdfunding efforts by people who are experienced in creating successful crowdfunding campaigns and know how to optimize your chances of success? It bounced down. If so, any such service do it for a percentage of the funds raised. Peter, so there's lots of people who will do this. They usually want some cash and they usually will work for a percentage of the funds raised as well. But there usually has to be an element of cash. One, because they want to see that you're serious, and so that it makes some minimum amount of money for their efforts. But and two, because they want to see, they really just got to see how serious you are, and that's the way to do it. And your secondary question of needing a formal business plan, no, you don't need a formal business plan. Nobody needs a formal business plan. It's the year 2016. You have to have your shit together. You have to be able to answer every question that would be in a formal business plan, so it could help to organize your thoughts. But start with a deck, tell a story, and have a plan to what you're going to do. Going back to the first part of the gathering, and there are some products that help you get that crap together, get it all and line it up. I haven't found any that are actually very good from that perspective. There's a bunch of products that kick butt, like Crowdster, that help you target the right people and do the pre-campaign stuff that you need to do. But at the end of the day, you probably are looking at somebody like one of our previous guests, like Dan Baird or Eli Regalado, and one of those types of guys. Somebody posted earlier that you could do a search on some sites for crowdfunding experts. You'll find them. A bit of advice on that front: you will find 20 crowdfunding experts for every one that's worth anything. So the best thing to do when they hit you up or when you reach them is to ask them for 3 samples of campaigns that they've worked on and a contact info for one of the people at the campaign, so you can just get a reference, right? What will happen is that 9 out of 10 times you're gonna hear crickets, and you're never gonna hear back from that person again, because 9 out of 10 crowdfunding experts have never raised a cent in their life. And so it's a bit like career coaching and stuff like that. There's a million of them, and you kind of wonder sometimes how they don't have a job. So anyway, that's my bit of abrasive advice. Now I'm going in here. Phil, are you finding that using regulated crowdfunding, Title III, so Reg CF, will cost the entrepreneur about $7,000 in legal fees and 7% of funds raised, and a processing fee for the investor of $7 or 2% of investment, as we suggested in the New York Times article regarding Indiegogo program? Phil, there are lots of people trying to lower the costs. There are lots of people trying to streamline the process. But at the end of the day, you absolutely have to plan on spending money to make money. Legal, honestly, saying $7,000 in legal fees, having been a part of many campaigns, having ran a business myself and raised money outside of crowdfunding and inside of crowdfunding, $7,000 feels very cheap for the legal part of crowdfunding. That said, a lot of it is standardized, like what I was saying about the Republic earlier and Start Engine earlier, and all of the platforms. A lot of the people are using the same terms, the same paperwork, and you need to have your act together. You need to have your act together, so you want to make sure you're using somebody very, very reputable. But if you use a reputable platform, they'll probably connect you with a reputable lawyer that they use. Not everybody has to go and spend tens of thousands of dollars because they're doing something standard, but it is expensive. But at the end of the day, saying 7% of funds raised plus the processing fees of 2%, that's really not that much if you think about that. Processing credit cards for anybody is 3% plus 30 cents a transaction, plus the 5% you pay Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and you end up spending about the same amount of money not doing equity. And equity is a lot more complicated from a paperwork standpoint. So if you plan on spending 10% on the sort of processing of the money, that's not fun to dish out that money, but I think that is probably pretty standard. I think, Fel, you're right. Fel, you should post a link to the article in the chat box while we're still all on, so people can read that and we can hear about it. So Nikita, listen to earlier when I talked about Indiegogo versus Kickstarter. I like Kickstarter better for the familiarity. Indiegogo I like from the fact that you can be a little bit more flexible, right? It's a little bit more libertarian-ish, if that makes any sense at all. How do you convert social media likes, RT's posts into pledges? I'm having traction on social media with the current Kickstarter campaign with lots of folks who are retweeting and liking aren't pledging. This is for a film. That's a huge problem, Faith. It's much easier to get somebody to hit the like button than it is to give you $1. But I think that what you need to do is try to convert that into sort of picking and finding the people, putting them on the spot and looking at them and going, Faith, thank you so much for all the sharing you're doing. I love you, you're great, you're wonderful, but it really helps at the beginning of my campaign or right now if you can contribute, if you're planning on it. If you're not, I totally understand, please continue sharing, you are awesome. And a lot of people, when put on the spot, will do it. And if you're not the right person to put them on the spot, you're gonna have to learn to be that way to run a company and close deals. For a film, it's really tough, but at the end of the day, you have to give people something they want. People are selfish. I've done a bunch of charity campaigns where we couldn't get Eva Longoria to convince her fans to give to inner city schools without some sort of selfish aspect to it. Avril Lavigne raised money for Children's Hospital in Los Angeles through our platform, and when she ran out of signed headshots, people stopped contributing. It sounds insane to most people when you're thinking, I'm going to give $10 to Children's Hospital, but she had a certain audience and they wanted the signed headshot of her. And at the end of the day, people are selfish, and when you're coming out of the blue trying to get them to contribute to something they might not be familiar with, you gotta give them something in return. So look at other film campaigns that have done it and steal from their playbook. There's no shame in copying things that work and giving them credit. Why not? These are a large amount of money for large scale businesses. So Mark's asking how to advise large amounts. The large amounts, same as small amounts. You got to work your butt off. You have to prepare in advance, and you probably have to do more prep in advance. And at the end of the day, you've got to give somebody something in return for what they give. And you have to know your audience. So far as I know, nobody's been extremely successful in an equity raise, trading stock in a company for a deal, unless it's been a consumer deal, which means it's still similar to the Kickstarter Indiegogo. So if you're a consumer product, you're probably in the right place. You got to find your audience, find people who want to buy it, and they're the people who understand the most the value in what you're doing. Simone, how do you recommend, who do you recommend for crowdfunding agency? I won't say specific. I'll give the people that we've had on, Eli Regalado, Dan Baird is awesome. Crowdfund X is insane. They're the ones that did the Elio Motors deal. Darren from Crowdfund X is one of our partners in the crowdfunding summit at the end of the year. They're awesome. They're more for bigger campaigns and a little more expensive, but you get what you pay for. But all three of those guys are great. There's a lot more though that I'm sure I'm missing off the top of my head. But just do a Google search for crowdfunding agencies, and you'll find 20 of them, and ask them for references, and only 5 of them will respond to that email because they're the only ones that have references. Let me try to power through 1 or 2 more. Isn't Indiegogo through a backer program? Indiegogo is traditionally through a backer program, just like, so Mark just asked, isn't Indiegogo rewards-based crowdfunding and not equity-based? And Indiegogo and Kickstarter, up until yesterday, were. Indiegogo just launched equity as well. So they actually have, if you go to their site, you can find a way to raise money with equity for deals on their site. It's a big announcement. We kind of touched on it earlier. I would be scared shitless if I were one of the current platforms, but at the end of the day, they got a step ahead. They know the industry. This is extremely validating. The best thing that can happen to a small startup is when a big brand tries to come in and eat their lunch, because it's major validation. They usually can't work as fast, and they're usually not as innovative. So it's going to be really exciting now as the mainstream starts to learn about this stuff. So we're all here at the right time. So that said, I'm going to sign off. I know we started late, but we went an extra 12 minutes past noon. Guys, shoot me a message if you have any questions. Shoot Joseph a message. Joseph is at Joseph Holm. I'm at Anonymous. Ash, I don't remember his Twitter account off the top of my head, but he is Ash Kumra. His company is called Youngry. Go check them out. He is all over the place. He's a great guy. Come to our crowdfunding event at the end of the year. It's called Crowd Invest Summit. If you go to the website, you'll get 20% off. If you use webinar20 as a coupon code, you'll get 20% off tickets. But sign up for the email list. We'll try to get more discounts closer to the event, and I'll try to convince Joseph to give you guys a bigger discount for sticking around today through the technical difficulties. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in 2 weeks, if not sooner. Good luck with all your campaigns. Peace out, guys.